Man, I come in here today and the place smells like a stinking barn. There's burlap all over the floor. I think I moved and went back to Minnesota where I grew up on the little hay farm. Now this is actually kind of a fill-in video, and I'm starting off with one of my rants that's not a rant. It's actually bragging. It's kind of like when I come in here and whine about the weather here in Washington. I gotta be honest. I lived in Minnesota long enough to know about cold, and worked construction in New Hampshire for a while, and I don't miss the cold at all. And in the same token, this I got burlap, buckets of it over here. I came in and I had to clean stuff up here, and the floor's all kinds of burlap sacking here. But that's what kind of stimulated me to do this rant. I wanted to, let me get in closer to, as I said before, it's kind of a backwards rant. I've been trying to fit in a segment where I could show you how to mix small amounts of and place small amounts of epoxy and bondo. And I'm looking down at my setup here, making sure I have all the stuff because I want to be able to cram this in. I don't want to waste a whole bunch of your time. But this rant came to mind simply because, no, I'm not in the tiniest bit upset by this stuff in the background. In fact, it typifies the reason why I do this. I mentioned in another video not too long back about how we just finished up a series called Foyle's War, which takes place in England during the war. Back when England was England, back when it had a spine, back when there were men on the continent. There aren't anymore. The English people wouldn't know a man if it kicked him in the ass. In fact, there's a dude on there does something called the Man Show. If you ever met a real man, he'd cut and run. But it's important to me, this channel is about passing on information, and I'm realizing it's also about passing on lifestyle and values. After we ran out of Foyle's War, we started watching another English show called Morse, about Inspector Morse. Well-placed, big reviews, supposed to be really, well, it's a piece of crap. It's total garbage. The message of the thing from start to finish is one of the problems we have with the world today. And as we actually skipped a bunch of them, but now we're back, we're further up into it. And one of the themes that's going on right now is the kids of today. Oh, the kids of today are such a mess. The kids of today are irredeemable. What are we going to do about, you know what? The kids of today are the product of us, you jerkwaters. These millennials, these people we talk about as kids of today, they're our kids, all right? The way to solve this problem is to pass on our passions to the next generation. It's to be men, it's to be women, it's to be parents. And I use this English show because it's depressing to watch what's happened in that country with their young people. This pile back here is my 13-year-old kid making a ghillie suit, all right? That's cool. I'm sorry, that is freaking cool. He's spending hours, and yeah, he snuck down here in the middle of the night and got a wild hair and started tearing up burlap. But the point is, he's doing something, building this thing from the ground up. Paintball wars, airsoft. We've got some room here on the property, and the kids get together and do that sort of thing, and we encourage it. I think he actually did it the night before last, because last night there were 19 kids up here gaming, and it was dark and it was rainy, and they weren't outside doing airsoft. So anyway, I came in today. I've been out for a day or two, a few days, and there's burlap all over. And now I can go up and give him a friendly rant about clean up after yourself. And in fact, it's not that bad. He did kind of clean up. He had everything piled up. But I'm using it for an excuse to rant about our place here on this planet. Our place, our job, our only function is to leave the world a better place than we found it. That includes raising kids. That includes passing on information. More than anything else, in my belief, it includes keeping the passion for living alive. I was in the mood because we wrapped up, my wife and I were trying to watch this English show last night, and this particular episode of MOAR, it was about kids going to raves, going to parties, getting involved with drugs, and destroying their lives. And the message at the end was, what are we going to do? Here's what we're going to do, people. We're going to grow up. We're going to act like grown-ups. We're going to raise kids that can be grown-ups. And to do that, we raise kids with principles and passions. There's all kinds of other connotations. I happen to be a fundamentalist Christian persuasion type guy, and that's neither here nor there. That's fine. But the biggest thing in all this is the reason I mentioned Foyle's War earlier was because it was refreshing to realize that at one time England did have a soul. At one time the people did have a clue. They had something to live for. They had a purpose. When London was being bombed, that had to be an amazingly scary, brutal, crazy thing and crazy time. We haven't ever had anything like this over here on this side of the pond. We've never, well, Pearl Harbor, but that only affected a small group of people, islanders, you know, they're a long ways away from the rest of us mainlanders. So this rant is kind of about the fact that pass it on, folks, pass it on. Raise kids with, we call it morals, but it's way beyond morals, it's principles. So, enough of that rant. Get off the principle kick here. I'm going to show you something that I learned. I'm sitting here, I got a little palette, and I'm going to pan down here and show this gun that I'm working on. What happened is I bedded this in and I decided to line the entire barrel channel. The barrel channel was cut out extra wide. And I decided to line it with black epoxy. And then I'm going to run a mill down it and just shine it up. This is a wood stocked gun that's been painted. I scratched down to the wood here because I'm floating this. I'm bedding here, I'm bedding here. This is another of my experiments. I gained clearance here. I'm going to go ahead and spray paint it black down the road and it'll all dress up and it'll look good. But I decided to fill the barrel channel. When I did that, I sucked a little bit. I got an air bubble right here. I got an air bubble right here that when I started to dress up, I popped an air bubble. I knew it was there because it was where I got sloppy. I got lazy. If I was doing this for a client, I would have set the barreled action in here and I would have taped this end up. I would have spent an hour on this end getting it dammed up and sealed up to where I could make a perfectly, I didn't do any of that. I slobbered together some epoxy and let it puke out the end. And I ran up there in my fingers and I ran down these. I didn't even mask this thing. I dumped a quarter cup of epoxy in here and I didn't even mask a thing because it's Cerakoted. I just let it puke up out of here. Well, as I pulled through this section, anybody who's ever epoxied understands what happened here. This is why this is not a quarter inch, but there's 3/16 of an inch in here of epoxy fill on both sides. This barrel channel was opened way up. So I tightened it up. When I pulled my cleanup through here, I drug this a little low. So I had to come back, and I noticed I'm over here mixing onto my little putty board here and epoxying using this, I call them X-Acto knives because I'm a redneck, but it's not an X-Acto knife, it's a utility knife. I use these blades all the time. I didn't realize how I just reach for one when I need it. And how easy it is for me to smear in and make these little adjustments and fix these little, like I don't even care. I go in here, I got a little area I want to fill. I just go like this and fill it. Bring it right to grade, bring it right to where I want it, fill this little section in whether I need it or not. And then when I come back, and I can make fine cuts. This happens to be in the portion that's already bedded, so I wipe it right out. I got the tiniest little bubble here that the Cerakote would fill. But I just boop boop, And I realized this is something I learned on an automotive channel. I was trying to research how to mix. Well, it goes back to one of my videos earlier. I'm complaining that you can't buy red clay anymore, and then when I do find red clay, it's 29 bucks for a little toothpaste tube. I don't want to spend that. Red clay is the way we used to fill these pinholes. I'm talking to some body guys, and they're like, oh no, you just mix up small amounts of bondo. Well, that's easier than it looks and harder than it looks. So I went on this forum, and body making forum, I guess. People were talking, and this guy showed a trick that I thought was awesome. I thought it was great, so I'm going to pass it on to you guys. Mixing small amounts of bondo. I take one of these and reach into my bondo jug. Every now and then, by the way, to those of you who might ever use bondo, this needs to be stirred because it settles out. It needs to be worked, because those of us who are doing this with our guns aren't going to go through this gallon in the rest of your life. So you might have it for 5, 6, 8, 10 years. Stir it, cover it, and every now and again, if you have to, add some solvent to it and give it a little juice. But anyway, this guy is saying how you mix up small amounts of bondo, and this is freaking inspired. As people who've done body work know, the way you do bondo is you take a big glop of it and you throw it on your pan and you mash it around till it's, you know, a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch thick, and then you lay a trail of blue bondo activator across the top, and then you mix it all up. Well, with these little bitty ones, you can't really do that. So what this guy said was, set up something like this. Now, you have to have mixed some bondo and used it long enough to be able to recognize color. But now, once you can recognize color, it becomes very easy to take this little pot of bondo here, steal yourself a little bit of blue, mix it in here, and use this razor blade. Some use a razor blade. I choose to use these knives. But it's a great mixing tool. And you can do the proper folding and mixing without getting bubbles easily. These are all things other than these blades. These are available at Home Depot. These are available at any auto body parts store. Now, I noticed from looking at the blue color that I got here that I mixed this just a wee bit hot. It's a little bluer, so that means my pot time is going to be quick. Like, this is a mix I would use when I want to, let's say that gun stock I was just working on, if I had decided to use body putty on it instead of the fiberglass that I used. Now I take this same tool and I take little dabs of it. I take little bits of it and I go fill this pinhole and I wipe it off, and I fill this area and I wipe it off, and I do this. This is just a great little tool. Now what I'm going to do, just because I did this for demonstration, I'm going to take this and I'm going to take all this blue and I'm going to pull it in, and I'm going to mix all this together and scrape it off, and in just a few short minutes this whole mess is going to get hard on me. And then, have I mentioned before that I'm a bit of a tightwad? Have I mentioned before that frugality is in my nature? Well, trust me, it is. So now I just set this aside. I wipe this blade down using a towel, because I use these over and over. You don't have to. I got buckets and boxes of them. I got enough blades to last. I got different brands and big dispensers of 100. And but why? That'll dry out. Perfectly usable. This right here, and this black epoxy that's left over from my epoxy mix when I fixed the gun. Now this brings me to another point about epoxy. Most of the time, and especially when you're mixing small batches, you want to put it into a container, mix that container, scraping as well as you can, but then take that container and transfer it to somewhere else. No matter how carefully you mix these small quantities, there's a chance you're going to leave a little bit of unmixed material around the edges. So a hot tip with epoxy is, after you've got it mixed, transfer it to something else. And in this case, I transfer it to one of these little pallets. And then I mixed and folded and mixed and folded and mixed and folded, and I did my repair on that gun. Now I got this, which I threw in the garbage, trash. I've got this, which I just set out and let it harden up, and then I just fold it and bend it, and this stuff peels off. These have, if I was able to get them in the light, these have been used over and over and over. Now, I buy them by the package, but I can make them last for a long, long time. I don't know what the package costs. Let's say it's 10 bucks. Again, this is about enjoying what you're doing it frugally, and not wasting a bunch of material. It's not that we can't afford to waste $1, because we probably can. But in this spirit of doing things well, let's not. Why waste $1 when we can instead waste nothing or waste something in the order of just pennies? So those are there's something about mixing up small quantities. Now there's something else that I've got to show you. I warned yous all. I told you. Now we're back to the WOOX'S. This is totally off the subject, but here in the last weeks I've been talking about my methods, what I'm doing to solve these problems, to make these stiff stocks. And I bought a couple of these here WOOX'S, and I was unhappy. I was not a happy camper. Well, I told you they were floppy, and I done told you I was going to weld them, and I mean forevermore. Freaking weld them. My problem is I'm not very good at welding aluminum, and I wanted a build-up in here. So my fix for this WOOX'S is, after spending X amount of dollars on the fancy WOOX'S that is crap, flopping around like an old, I mean, it is soft and spongy. It's floppier than the Remington Tupperware stock from Walmart. I paid a guy 150 bucks. I paid a certified welder. And he undercut, he cleaned off. This weld has, I'm going to put it in the mill and clean it up just a little bit, but mainly no. None of that even matters. You know what? I'm not even going to mill this. I'm going to leave it just as ugly as it is. Instead, I'm going to mill out in here so that I can put this together, get that monkey mess to go up in there, and epoxy this forevermore down. But I just wanted to show you that I was not joking. Some of you might have thought when he uses the term, yeah, I'm just going to weld it, that I was using something called hyperbole. I don't generally hyperbolize my peeps. When I just about rolled that thing off. When I say I'm going to weld something, I generally do weld it. So these are welded now. Now they're not billet, it's not solid, but this welder that I chose is an artist. And he dug deep, he screwed it together, and this weld goes essentially all the way through the matrix. There isn't more than the fillet left here and here in the middle. So I just wanted to show you that I did in fact, and of course to all of you who weld, this over here is to clamp to. He welded off whatever coating, or ground off whatever coating is on here. So the WOOX'S are going together. They're going to be pretty tight now, people. I expect to, when they shoot or don't shoot, I'm not going to have to blame the stock. So this is my way of salvaging that particular. It's kind of an expensive way, and that's why I wanted to show you how strongly I feel about it and why I did it. But this is a case of trying to do my due diligence. Yes, it's a solid billet, they told me. Jump in, the water's fine, they told me. This is the best thing in the world, they told me. You're going to have fun, they told me. This is guaranteed to make you happy, they told me. Well, that guarantee is worth nothing. Because what a guarantee means is, when I tell them it sucks, they'll give me my money back. Well, I didn't want my money back. I like the concept. So this pig is now welded. It's ground. Some of this shiny here is welded, and you can see a little. This guy's good enough that you can. Some of this is ground. I don't know if he could have got started in here and it would have just blown the anodizing off. I don't know that much about aluminum welding. All I know is that I brought this to somebody who does aluminum welding and fabrication for a living. he feels that that's going to hold together and not break. So that's what we're doing today. I just wanted to share this kind of almost a recap video and a rant about, dude, kids are, I grew up with this stupid ass song about how this woman believes that children are our future and you're supposed to treat them well and blah blah. It's like one of those coexist stickers. Every time I see one of those coexist stickers, I go, dude, seriously? What's the alternative? Have a clue. Why put a coexist sticker? Why write a song about the children are, well, no bad word inserted here. Of course the children are our future. They're also our job. I am so proud of my pile of burlap in the background there that it stimulated me to do a video, because pass on the legacy, people. Building a ghillie suit. Love to see it. Enjoy the day, and we'll catch you on the flip, hey?